You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 213. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, you are in for a treat because you get to meet my online friend who I get to meet in real life this week, Jessica Saunders. Jessica is basically, she's like my twin. She is a debut author. Her book comes out today called Love Me, and she is also an attorney. That is her full-time job, and I just love, we are both very type A, organized, even have the same kind of writing rituals. So we hit it off thanks to Lee Stein, who introduced us. And we got to have such a fun conversation about not just how Jessica became an author with a big publishing deal, but how she's also juggling motherhood, being an attorney, still full-time. And I asked her a question that I've wanted to ask an author that I've never done before. So you have to listen for that part in the interview because it made me giggle and blush, and it was a great answer. So enjoy listening to my conversation with Jessica. Love Me is out today. Hi, Jess.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so excited to talk to you. So I am good because we've gotten to text, we've gotten to email, we've gotten to DM, we've exchanged books, but yet this is the first time we've gotten to actually talk to each other. So I am so excited. Can you introduce yourself to everybody, please?
Sure. I'm Jessica Saunders, and my debut novel, Love Me, is publishing on January 16th, 2024.
Which is today, because when this is released, it will be today. So let me be the first to congratulate you on your pub day.
Oh my God. Thank you. That's great.
It makes me smile really big. I'm like, we don't realize that. Like, it's going to happen. And it is
going to happen
right around the corner. So let's talk about you, though, first, because it is your debut novel. But what's your day job? Let's talk about what you actually do.
Sure. I am an attorney. I work for a personal care products company managing litigation for them. I worked at a law firm for a really long time as a litigator. So now I'm what is known as in-house counsel for this company.
And did you always want to write a novel?
Yeah, it's funny. I always loved to write. I always loved to read. For me, as a child, I was one of those kids with, a book in her hand at all times and under the covers and during sleepovers reading. And actually, it's kind of nice because I have two daughters, and my 11-year-old has completely mimicked my behavior as a child, and she also. So the two of us are just constantly reading together, which is really nice. But so I always loved to read, and as I got older, I started to write a bit, and I worked for the school newspaper, and then in college, I took some creative writing classes, but I also wrote a column for my college paper. And so in the back of my mind, it was always a dream, but it was not something that I pursued until more recently.
Well, I think as a lawyer, you have to be a good writer and like writing. I didn't go to law school, but I have 2 degrees in law. So I know that there's a lot of writing involved with being an attorney. So it kind of fits that you could do it, but the writing styles are so different.
No, that
you
is
could say one is dull, and your book is far from dull. It is really, really good.
Thank you. So, it's interesting. When you are a litigator, I think people think about going to court, arguing in front of a judge, trying cases. But in my practice, I was really known as the brief writer. So I used my writing skills. Obviously, they are different skills, but I always loved that process. So, as a lawyer, you do a ton of research. I would use Westlaw, and I would find cases, and I would get really creative and come up with arguments, and I just could fill my days with writing briefs. And I think in some ways that's what put off this idea of writing a novel for so long, because I was sort of scratching that itch of wanting to write in my day job, and I was writing all the time.
How long did it take you to write the novel since you're still working full time? Like you were doing it what, mornings and nights?
Yeah. So I had a unique experience because I always had ideas sort of floating in my head. And then when unfortunately, I lost a very close friend. And I sort of looked at that time of, okay, this is a dream that I've had forever. And it was a real wake up call that, we don't have all the time in the world. At that point, I had lists of ideas. I'm an ideas girl, but I hadn't put anything really to paper. And so, I had in the notes app on my phone, I just like had lots and lots of ideas. And so when I lost my friend, I said, okay, this is the time. And it was spring of 2021. So I decided to sign up for a class. So I took a class through Gotham Writers Workshop, which was fantastic. And it was a weekly Zoom, a live class. And I had, it was called a first draft class. So all you needed to do was come in with an idea and a commitment to write every week. And so I went about doing that. And so it was a 10-week class, I'd say. And I remember it started in the beginning of July. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. And it was the first time I'd ever attempted this, but I just loved it so much. And as I mentioned, I'm a reader. I kind of put reading to the back burner. So in the time that I would usually spend it at night reading, before bed and even watching TV, my husband was alone watching TV for all those months, and I just made it a priority. So I would say I actually finished a first draft within 3 months, just from being
That's
really committed.
incredible.
Thank you. I think it's because I'm a lawyer. You're focused. You have deadlines. You're focused, and I was used to deadlines. I was used to structure, and I kind of went full steam ahead. And the other thing I would share from this great class that I took is that they really discourage you from going back and editing along the way. So for me, it was really freeing. I just sat down at my computer and I wasn't allowed really to go back and get caught up in prior things I'd written. So I just full steam ahead. I really got to the end of it, and that's when obviously the editing process happened. But I wasn't bogged down in things that I needed to change.
I think we're very similar. I think this is why we get along so well, is because I'm the same way. Mine took me a year, but I also spent like a week in the hospital, and there were like
Yeah.
things that came
Yeah.
up in between.
Sure.
So minor details, but I was very much like, here's the deadline. I'm going to get this done. And I had everything outlined, and then I'd tackle a chapter, move on to the next, do the next one. And it wasn't until I was completely done. And even along the way, I go, oh, you know what? I missed this. Well, I'm just going to write it down that chapter 5 needs this added. And I wouldn't go back to add it until everything was done. So my process was very similar to yours. This current process that I'm in right now, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, because for me, I'm like, okay, we're going to write about this. Oh, but I should probably include this. So should I create a new chapter document on this so I cover this, or it's a hot mess right now, but it'll be good and it'll be fine along
I'm
the way.
sure it will be. I mean, the bottom line is, and one thing I'm by no means, an expert in this area at all, but I felt like I could just write, and then I could write more. And if I had sort of something that went off outline or wasn't within the anticipated structure, I could write that too, because you can edit it in later and figure out where it belongs. So, I mean, that's how I did it then. I don't know how I'll do it now, but for you, as you start thinking about different things, I feel like I just found it really freeing knowing that I could fit it in somewhere later.
When did you realize that it was a book that you could and would want to sell?
It never occurred to me, and I think this might be because I am so, the publishing industry is so far into me and I knew nothing. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't write the book and then try to sell it. I was like, I'm writing a book to sell the book. And so, I wrote the book, finished a draft, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to go find an agent. I just didn't appreciate, the challenges that could mean. And so, which I think is great because it was a lot less stressful.
Again, very similar, because I was like, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be traditionally published. End of story.
Yep.
The only way I was going to self-publish was if after a year of queries and pitches, I got nothing, then I would consider self-publishing. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. It was just my mindset of it has to be out there. The end.
No, I feel similarly. And actually, I had said, okay, if and I did get an agent actually fairly quickly, which was fantastic. But the submission process was a bit longer, and just finding, an editor or a publisher rather to buy the book. But I thought about this idea of self-publishing, which I think is a great option for people. But for me, I felt that if this didn't work, well, I still had my day job, and that also took off the pressure. I didn't feel this. I wanted so badly to have my book published. And for me, I was hoping for it to be traditionally published, which thankfully from my perspective, that is how it worked out. But there was less of an urgency, I think, because it wasn't at the time and even today, not my whole career.
So let's talk about the book, Love Me. Give us the plot so that I don't give anything away. I loved it. I devoured it very quickly.
Well,
and I know that I love a good book when I'm like, read. No, don't interrupt me. I have to keep reading. And then boom, it's done in like 2 or 3 days. For me, that's quick because life. But yes, I loved it. So tell us what it's about.
Thank you, Michelle. Love Me is about Rachel Miller. She is an attorney and a married mom of 2 elementary school age children. And essentially, she's quite satisfied in her life until her world is turned upside down when letters and photos of her and her high school boyfriend, who is now this big, famous movie star who she's no longer in touch with, when the letters that he had written her and photos of them are published in a tabloid. So Rachel, this normal woman, is suddenly thrust into the spotlight, and all hell breaks loose for her.
It's so good. Like, it's so good.
Thank you.
Now, I have some questions, and I forewarned you about this because I really haven't had authors on that I could ask these questions to. First of all, has your husband read the book?
Yes, my husband has read the book, and he and I joke that he's not, my target audience. So for a long time, I mean, he is, I think that I have had men read it. Actually, his best friend read the book and loved it, but I was very surprised. I didn't anticipate that because, I think the book is for women. It's really it's about a woman's journey, and self-discovery, like figuring out, where her life is going and thinking about how she got to the place that she's at right now and what does she want for the future. So, I hope that women will find Rachel's story relatable. So while my husband, given that, is not really who I was aiming for. So I gave him the novel in draft form pretty early on, and he's not as fast a reader as I am, and I saw him with the printed PDF with a red pen, and he was like starting to make notes and like change. And he's an attorney too, and oh my God, he was starting to change like the grammar, and I was like, hold up. I just don't do that. I don't want that. So I basically told him to stop after a while. And then when I had done the first pass review of the book, which for authors, it's really essentially the last chance after the book has been copy edited and line edited. And you want to just, it's really the author's one of their last chances to make sure they're comfortable with it and there are no, glaring errors. That's when I handed it to him and I said, you read this, and if you have anything to say, now is your chance. And so he read it and he really enjoyed it. He saw the beauty in it. So that was really exciting for me.
So one of the reasons I asked is because in the book, and we will not say who this pertains to, but there is a sex scene. And I'm completely fascinated with, because my husband hasn't read my book yet.
Okay.
I just read to him the dedication and acknowledgments as the galleys came. And my husband and two kids were like, we're in the book. I'm like, duh, yes, you're in the book. But I wouldn't let them see it. So my question is around this scene. And was he like, oh, this is when we did this? Or, how did you come up with this? Is this what you were hoping is going to happen?
That's funny.
Take me through that part, please. Because I'm just wondering, as I'm writing, I don't foresee these kinds of scenes, but you never know. So I want to know what kind of reaction an author gets when their spouse reads their book.
I
and
love
there's
that.
a scene.
It's a great question. So first of all, now that I am an author, I have been reading more books in the genre that I am publishing in. So I've been reading more romance books than I ever did before. And I think if you were to, some people have like these spice, like pepper scales of how hot and spicy their books are. And I would say my book isn't that spicy. I think, there's like 1.5 sex scenes. So I'm always thinking, so I relate to you, and I don't often think about what is their spouse thinking. I often think like, what are their parents thinking, or what is their,
Yeah, that too, I guess.
Right. So for me, I did not think about it or worry about it. I felt like he would think it was just part of the book, and he would probably find it interesting, but but not, I didn't anticipate any kind of concern from him, and he didn't express any. So that is definitely good. But I will say to you, I took a galley. So I mentioned earlier, my daughter is like a really big reader. So I took one of the galleys and I I like basically blocked out certain pages, and then I handed her the book to read. So she did not get to read the embarrassing, spicy sex scenes. And then I took that copy of the book when she was done and I handed it to my dad. And I said, okay, here, you can read my book now. So that was kind of cool. I don't want him
That's hilarious. Because my 7-year-old, she's always like, what are you reading? What book? Because she's very similar to your daughter. And she saw this and she's like, tell me about what it is. And I gave her the synopsis and, well, what's going on? And then she starts thumbing through and I'm like, oh, let's not get to certain pages, but you can read it. It's fine. There's just a little bit that maybe we shouldn't, look at, but it's hilarious because the same thing. Yeah. She was like, let me thumb through. Oh, what's going to happen now? Tell me what happened with that girl.
Oh,
And
I love it.
it's hilarious because she knows who you are. So we all get very excited in this house when mom gets to talk to an author and we have the book here in the house, and it's a big deal.
That is so cool. I can imagine that.
And, I read somewhere about the author of 50 Shades that she and her husband actually practiced all of the scenes.
No.
Before she wrote it, as she wrote it. And like she would make him redo some of the scenes to make sure that she could write it correctly.
Wow. So I feel like mine was nowhere near the
See, now your husband might be going, can we come back to that? Let's
I love it.
See, that's the reason why there was a question behind,
Mhm.
the reasoning behind the question of, what really goes on in an author's house? I'm
Yes.
curious.
I will say I actually distinctly remember writing the scene that you're talking about, and we were on vacation that week with friends, and I like went into our room. We were in a house, we'd rented a house, and I brought, a giant glass of wine, and and that's when I wrote. I'm like, I can't be, completely sober to write this. Definitely putting yourself out of your comfort zone for sure.
Oh my God, I love that. Now I have a huge, this is the best. Like, normally I'll ask, so what's your writing ritual? And you
Yeah.
get, I go in the
Get
basement, I go
wasted.
outside, and you're like, I had this huge glass of wine and I was not sober. That is the best.
Yeah.
I will not use that in a quote
Yeah.
graphic, I promise,
Oh,
but that
please.
would be hilarious.
It
Oh my
helps.
goodness.
It's advice. It's good advice. If you need something to relax you, it's definitely useful during writing those scenes for sure.
Oh my goodness. So what are you doing now? You've got the book launching. You're going to go launch it, going to go do
Yeah.
signings. And then what's next? Because it's the question that I say I hate being asked. And yet I'm like, let me ask it. What's next?
Yeah. What's next for you, Michelle? No, so I have, I have my job still, with no, current plans to step back, but I do, part of it is I wrote the book while working. I want to kind of see if I can do that again. And so I have an idea I'm working on, but as as you're building up to the launch, you're you're doing a lot of self promotion and marketing and interacting with authors and other potential readers. So that's definitely been a focus for me. And being a mom and balancing career, it's definitely gotten in the way of my ability to write. But my hope is certainly that, now I'll be able to refocus on that because I really loved it so much. I surprised myself by how much I enjoyed it when I was in a rhythm and writing. So I'm definitely hoping to put out another novel soon.
I can't wait.
I hope.
You're going
Thanks.
to, and it's going to be so much fun. And then we're going to go on tour together.
Yeah, I hope so. I do. I do.
I love that. What advice would you give to other future authors out there who are wondering, can I do it? How do I do it? How do I juggle the job and, put out a novel at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to make excuses and not make excuses. I mean, we all have so much going on in our lives. Anybody who, is a parent or who, has a job, it's really difficult to find the time. And so I guess what worked for me was making the choice that when I had free time, any little free time I had, I devoted it to my writing, but I did it because I wanted to. So I think that's the question, like, how much do you really want to do it? And if you really want to do it, and that means you really want to sit down at your computer for hours or wake up early or go to bed late, which, I did, or on the weekends, my husband would take the girls and I would work. I mean, we would go on a car trip and I would sit in the car, for however long that car trip was with my laptop. And I think that was the choice I was making. So, for anybody who's thinking about doing this, you really, you really have to put yourself into the situation where you can get it done. So that is, I think, my recommendation. It's hard, and unfortunately, which you and I know now on the flip side, on the other side of having written a book, it doesn't end there. So you write a book, and then there's just so much extra parts to getting a book out into the universe. So I think just selling a book is another job. It's another component to being an author. And that actually was, if I was prepared for, I was really not anticipating or just considering that. And now, that's where so much of my focus is.
And so this week you're going to be in New York because while we're recording, we're pretending it's this week. Where can people find you this week? Where can people find the book? And when I say you, maybe us, because I will pop into one of your signings.
I would love
this
that.
week.
Yeah. So tonight, January 16th, I will be at Athena Books in Greenwich, Connecticut, in conversation with Annabelle Monahan, which I am so excited about. Her books are phenomenal. Nora Goes Off Script, same time next summer. And then Wednesday, I will be at the Upper East Side Barnes and Noble. And then on Thursday, I'm going to Long Island, which is where I'm from, to the Carl Place Barnes and Noble. And I have a few other events in the works. So I will be out and about. I'm going to be in Florida in February as well. So I'll post all that on social media. And I'm hopeful that I will see lots of people there.
Yes. And Love Me is out today everywhere you buy books. Congratulations, my friend. It is so good. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm proud of you too. You have a book out now too. So
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So we're going through this together, which is really quite exciting. So thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Okay, friends, if you need to start your new year with a romantic comedy, great women's fiction book, Love Me is it. I devoured it. I adore Jessica. I can't wait to see what she writes next because I know it's going to be another epic novel. And I just want you all to remember that you can do this too. If you have something on your mind that you want to do it. Don't make excuses for it. Simply make the time for it. Don't forget that tomorrow is my pub day. How to Get On Podcasts launches everywhere. It's January 17th. Thank you for all of the pre-orders, and I can't wait to celebrate with all of you.